Government Order of the Day number 5.
Land Transport Drug Driving Amendment Bill, third reading.
Honourable Chris Bishop.
Mr Speaker, I present a legislative statement on the Land Transport Drug Driving Amendment Bill to the House.
That legislative statement is published under the authority of the House and can be found on the Parliament website.
I move that the Land Transport Drug Driving Amendment Bill be now read a third time. Mr Speaker, I'm very pleased to present this bill to the House for its third reading. This is Parliament's third attempt in about 3 or 4 years of introducing oral fluid testing for drugs at the roadside. Hopefully it is third time lucky, because I, for one, do not want to be back here in 2026 or 7 or 8 legislating again to bring New Zealand into line with many other jurisdictions that see drugs out there in the community and want to make sure that people who get behind the wheel are not on drugs, because we know that they are a major factor in many road deaths and serious injuries. We had a go back in 2022, but the approval criteria was incompatible with commercially available devices. We're now making sure that police are equipped with roadside oral fluid screening as a road safety tool to enable the enforcement. The way I think about it is it's a little bit like breath testing for alcohol. They'll be able to stop any driver of a motor vehicle to administer an oral fluid screening test, a key part of deterring drug driving, making sure that people can be tested any time and anywhere. A driver who tests positive on the first screening test will be required to undergo a second screening test and to provide an oral fluid sample for laboratory testing. 2 positive screening tests triggers a mandatory 12-hour stand down from driving to address any immediate road safety risk. An infringement notice is only issued following a positive laboratory test. The Minister of Police will set out in notices what qualifying drugs or families of drugs will be tested for at the roadside and in the laboratory. The requirement for 2 positive screening tests before a person is stood down and a positive laboratory test before an infringement offence is committed are measures to address concerns about the accuracy of the devices. These devices have been used in Australia for many years. 2 tests have 98% accuracy. There were changes in the Committee of the Whole House stage resulting in changes to the way oral fluid samples will be able to be collected for future independent analysis. This allows drivers the option to challenge the infringement notice issued following a positive laboratory test by paying a private analyst to test their oral fluid sample. Mr Speaker, the government's moving quickly on this bill. We expect police to be ready to implement the bill by the end of this year once it becomes an act. Before it is rolled out, they will have to procure and approve the devices and the laboratory services. They'll have to train police officers and develop regulations to support the regime. But it is a good step forward. I think many people will welcome it. As I said at the start of my brief remarks, drugs are a contributor to many deaths and serious injuries on the road, alongside alcohol. And now, of course, we will have soon will have a method of testing for drugs on the road. And I think we will look back in 5 to 10 years and we will say, what was the fuss about? How crazy was it that you could be high on weed or coke or meth? MDMA, says Tom Rutherford. Oh, Tom says Mike Butterick told him. I'll just be a bit careful about what I say here, particularly in relation to Tom Rutherford, the youngest member of the National Party caucus. It doesn't actually matter. The point is drugs can impair your driving, and the idea that you could be high and drive is nuts. And up until this law comes into effect and is implemented, there is essentially nothing to stop you doing that. Certainly not in the law, and or certainly not any ability to check that. So it's a good bill. We've worked pretty hard on it, and I'm looking forward to seeing its passage through the House today. Thank you.
Cameron Luxton.
Speaker, I rise on behalf of the ACT Party to speak on this third reading of the Land Transport Drug Driving Amendment Bill. Mr Speaker, it has been traversed by many others in the House, but I will do so again, that driving while impaired is a dangerous activity on the road. That is what this bill is trying to address. It's not good enough for New Zealanders and their families to go about their lawful business on the road and have the risk of someone who is seriously impaired through drug driving also sharing that road and creating a danger for all of us in this country. So, Mr Speaker, I think it is important that this bill passes so that New Zealanders can have confidence that when they go out on the road, they are doing so amongst a community of safe drivers who are not impaired, and I commend this bill to the House.
Andy Foster.
Mr Speaker, I rise on behalf of New Zealand First to speak to the Land Transport Drug Driving Amendment Bill. Road safety best practice usually would say that's about safer roads and roadsides, about safer speeds, about safer vehicles and about safer road users. And this bill is about the safer road users part of that because, Mr Speaker, drug driving we know is a major problem on our roads. We had 289 people who tragically lost their lives last calendar year on the roads. Mr Speaker, of those, 64 had drugs in their system and a further 32 had drugs and alcohol in their system. So there is no doubt that drugs are playing a significant role in road death and injury, and that is why this bill is here. I commend this bill to the House.
Tom Rutherford.
Mr Speaker, and as my colleague said, it was a privilege to sit on the Transport and Infrastructure Select Committee through most of the deliberations of this piece of legislation. And I do want to highlight, both to the House and to the general public, that in 2023 there were 64 fatalities where the presence of drugs were detected in the driver, and a further 32 drivers were found to have both drugs and alcohol in their system whilst operating on the road. And so this legislation is simply about ensuring that for New Zealanders and international visitors and anyone who drive on our roads, they can feel comfortable and safe knowing that drug drivers will not be operating vehicles and that the New Zealand Police have the enforcement and the tools they need to ensure our roads are safe for everyone and that we can reduce fatalities in this country. It is 2025. There's long been time for legislation like this to help keep our roads safe for the general public, and so I commend this bill to the House.
The Honourable Ginny Anderson.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker. It's a pleasure to take a call on the Land Transport Drug Driving Amendment Bill. We continue to support the bill because it is about road safety and it is about making sure that people who are impaired are not endangering our roads as they currently do. And I would like to highlight in the point that it's good we're having this legislation coming into place as soon as possible, Mr Speaker, because what we're seeing in New Zealand right now is an absolutely unprecedented level of methamphetamine use right now. And we do know through anecdotal reports that those driving for long hours can use methamphetamine in order to keep awake if they're required to. And this is incredibly dangerous for other drivers on our roads. So given the fact that in just a period of 12 months, we have seen a 96% increase in the wastewater testing that police released just last Friday. And so that's in a 12-month period. So we are seeing record levels of methamphetamine coming over the border, finding its way into organised criminal networks and then being distributed across streets and communities in New Zealand. And so if people are taking methamphetamine 96% more than they were a year ago, the risk of those people driving on our roads impaired has increased as well. So it's timely and appropriate that we have the ability for police to stop and check and make sure that someone does not have those substances within their system if they are in fact in charge of a vehicle on our roads. It's good to see that this is progressing and it builds upon our support for the fact that police can already conduct those compulsory impairment tests on drivers if they have in fact good cause to suspect that they could be impaired or that the driver could have consumed drugs. So the introduction of roadside screening tests is a sensible, practical move that will enable roadside testing to detect those drugs and help remove impaired drivers from behind the wheel. I'd just like to, in closing, acknowledge the hard work of the Select Committee. I know they went out to Kenepuru and they visited to the ESR. It's always good to see Select Committees going out and undertaking field work to get their heads around some of the more complex areas in order for legislation to be passed in a way that we know it will work as well as it is. I think this is a fascinating area of the law and it's good that we're supporting it on both sides of the House, and I truly hope that it saves lives. I commend it to the House.
Dr. Lawrence Zunan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise on behalf of the Green Party to oppose this bill for a number of reasons. But I want to say, first and foremost, that yes, everyone should be free to travel around their communities and around our country without risking death or serious injury. Yes, it is true that no one should ever drive while seriously impaired, and it puts themselves and others at risk. The Green Party will not be supporting this. Not only is from a pharmacological component that we have not gotten the reassurance that when you're looking at qualifying drugs or interaction of drugs or even drugs that is available for certain treatment of anxiety and also neurodiversity, that it does have the protection for those people. We're also seeing some severe challenges in terms of the Fundamental Bill of Rights Act. There are other ways to deal with this. And I just want to leave with saying that unsafe speed is actually a factor in more fatal crashes than alcohol or drugs. Thank you.
Taku Te Whereas.
So thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to present Te Pāti Māori's views on the bill. What we cannot not address in this House is the government's continuation of dismissing the negative impacts on Māori, and in this bill I'm going to speak to the negative impacts on rangatahi Māori. This is a very, very key piece of the justice pipeline when it comes to Māori in prison. Because from prison, that being in prison, that 54% of Māori men in prison, that starts somewhere. For most young Māori youth, male, rangatahi Māori, it starts with an interaction with the police over driving or an interaction with the police over low-level drug offending. This is how it starts. Oh, don't do it, I say. It's a symptom of poverty. You wouldn't know about that. You obviously haven't researched what poverty means either, so don't do that. I'm talking about young Māori. They're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. And they don't fairly come into contact with the justice system. It's not fair. That's perfectly understood. If you don't understand that, oh man, we're in trouble. But this is what we're dealing with, and this is what I'm speaking to with regards to this bill. The justice, I see our Justice Minister is here. Justice, right across its three areas, has three key KPIs, goals. One of the big ones is reduce the overrepresentation of Māori in the justice system. Almost every piece of legislation that's come through the House does the opposite. This is one of them, and it will exacerbate the presence of rangatahi Māori in the justice system. How can that be the Justice Minister's way forward? How can that be the way forward for a justice system who wants to reduce the overrepresentation of Māori in its system? It can't be, but it is. So why? Well, I'll leave the public to work that one out. You're not saving anyone's lives. Road toll hasn't come down. Okay, so rangatahi Māori, that's what we're talking about. 41% of minor drug offences, okay, Māori. Similarly, for minor traffic offences. I see the ex-mayor of Wellington is talking over there. He might want to think about this. Didn't do such a great job in Wellington when he was the mayor. So rangatahi Māori enter the system there, many rangatahi Māori. The reason I know this is because many iwi all around the country have tried proactive programs to counter this phenomenon. So what they do is they get early licensing programs into schools so that their kids have got licenses. And then they teach them how to interact with the police when they get pulled up. Because police profile rangatahi Māori, that's why they get pulled up more than any other rangatahi group. Oh, garbage, she says. Yeah, no, she doesn't like reports. That's what happens, and this is the proactive steps that Te iwi Māori have done to try and circumvent this little circle of delivering our kids into the justice system. Because once they get in it, the layering up, the amount of offences quickly racks up for them. Okay, quickly racks up for them, and that's the beginning of a long delivery line for rangatahi Māori, particularly men, into prison. And the government is happy for that. They're happy to ignore it. I raise it time and time again. They ignore it time and time again. So I'm putting it here for you, blunt and point blank. All the experts say that the tech doesn't work. You shouldn't do it. They've ignored all of that, and we can't commend it. We can't agree with it. We can't possibly let that go through this House. So we do not commend the bill to the House at all.
The question is that the Land Transport Drug Driving Amendment Bill be now read a third time. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The ayes have it. A party vote has been called for. Please, Clerk, conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa New Zealand.
Te kaumāori mā ngā poti whakahe.
ACT New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand First.
8 votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
Ono ngā poti e whakahea.
The ayes are 102, the noes are 21. The question is agreed.
Land Transport Drug Driving Amendment Bill, third reading.